Thank you all for coming here. I just want to kick us off with a little bit of an agenda for today and what we're going to talk about. We're going to speed talk a little bit because we have so much to tell you. But first of all, a little introduction to ORCID. What is it? What does it mean to be a certified ORCID service provider? And what steps did we take in Pure in order to get to that? So, and also want to highlight a little bit of what does it mean to authenticate your ORCIDs in Pure? What are you able to do with authenticated ORCID? What you're not able to do on that? But most importantly, we have invited Paul from Aalborg University, who has been doing quite a bit of things with ORCID. We have so much on our mind that we probably only will give Paul a couple of minutes, but that is okay because Paul have an entire session afterwards about what they are doing in Denmark in general with ORCID and persistent identifiers. So this is the agenda for today. I'll hand it over to ORCID and talk a little bit. Here you go.
Thank you, Malena. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shiv Naidu from ORCID. I'm an engagement manager in the engagement team at ORCID. I assume most of you will already be familiar with ORCID, but for those who might be new to your role or new to academia, I just want to give a very brief reintroduction. So, as many of you will know the ORCID identifier. We are an independent non-for-profit member agency and an open infrastructure provider who actually power that identifier and that registry of ORCID records behind that. We've been running for about 13 years and we're sustained exclusively by the fees, the annual membership fees that our members pay ORCID to sustain our activities and to allow us to provide those services free of charge to researchers. So a big thank you to Elsevier and also many of the institutions who are in the room today and represent at the conference who are already ORCID members. So ORCID provides three key infrastructure services. There's the identifier that I mentioned, that 16-string digit number with the ORCID URL in front of it. And researchers can use this anywhere and everywhere that they need to be uniquely identified. And this helps to solve the name disambiguation problem in academia. Accompanying that ORCID identifier is the ORCID record, which can be thought of as a digital CV or profile, where they can catalog all of their research activities, their organizational affiliations, research outputs, and so on. But the third service is probably the most important from an institutional perspective and the vendor and service provider perspective. It's the ORCID APIs, and these are application programming interfaces that allow different systems, such as Pure, to plug into the ORCID registry and exchange data back and forth with these ORCID records. And this is really what saves researchers time and effort. It avoids them having to manually re-enter data into all of these different systems that they may be using on a day-to-day basis. They only have to log in with their ORCID ID once. So that's the concept of use once and connect once and reuse often. And that should allow all of the data to flow between these different systems and the ORCID record, saving them time and effort and also avoiding manual entry errors and also the problems of potential misrepresentation or bad actors. So, as I say, we've been going over 13 years. ORCID is pretty much well established in the global research ecosystem. These numbers have gone up since we put these slides together. So we now look at yearly active researchers, and we are at around 10.4 million this month. So these are records that have been updated by the researcher or a trusted party, such as their university or a publisher or a funder, on their behalf in the last 12 months. We have over 1,500 member organizations now, member consortiums in over 28 national member consortiums around the world, and member organizations across 65 different countries. And altogether, those members have actually integrated over 6,500 different systems with the ORCID API. So just very briefly about the ORCID Certified Service Provider program that I head up at ORCID. This is a free voluntary certification program that ORCID offers to vendors and service providers and others who have built an ORCID integration with the ORCID API. So it basically provides assurance to ORCID members and to researchers that These integrations are following best practices around data handling and data privacy, and actually delivering the services and the functionality that they would expect from an ORCID integration and an ORCID-enabled system. But the real benefit there at the bottom is faster, more reliable integration routes for members. So rather than universities having to build their own integrations, selecting a ORCID Certified Service Provider system such as Pure allows them to quickly plug and play with the ORCID API. They can request their member API credentials from ORCID, plug that into their integration with Pure, and they can start exchanging data back and forth with those ORCID records very quickly. So these are some of the benefits to the vendor as well in terms of certifying their integration with ORCID. And again, the fifth one, the quicker integration setup, as I mentioned. So non-certified integrations need to go through an individual integration review process, whereas certified CSP systems can actually make it much faster for members to get up and running with their ORCID integration. In terms of Pure's impact as an ORCID CSP system, having certified last year, so I just want to provide a brief overview of the key stats there. So ORCID currently has around 167 different member institutions using that integration with Pure. It's writing affiliations, works, and to the person section of the ORCID records of those researchers. So adding things like the Scopus ID for the person section of the ORCID record as well. And altogether, there have been over 186,000 different ORCID IDs connected across those member organizations using the Pure integration. Over 155,000 updated ORCID records. And last year alone, over 1.65 million works were added to ORCID records using this integration, and over 47,000 institutional affiliations added as well. But what does that mean overall? Well, it means that using the ORCID Pure integration, institutions can add verified data to the ORCID records of their researchers, so particularly the affiliations in the employment section of their record. And all of that data flows into the ORCID record and then can be reused again by other systems that integrate with ORCID. So manuscript submission systems such as Aries Editorial Manager, which is also another Elsevier-owned system. But when the researchers submit to a journal using Editorial Manager, all of that data can flow into Aries as well. Funder systems, discovery systems, and since we're in Portugal, I've mentioned a national governmental system here, Ciência Vita from FCT in Portugal, which also uses ORCID data and links the national identifier in Portugal to the ORCID record as well. And I'll pass over here to Malena.
Yes, I just want to spend a few words on talking about why we went for this. For us, it's always important to demonstrate that we are best in class. We like that. And therefore, we went with this certification so we could demonstrate to the world that we are actually best in class. And ORCID is important for us as a CRIS system for various reasons. We have a lot of import sources, a lot of sources that we get data into Pure from, but also a lot of sources that we talk to. And it's very important in that process that we make sure that we handle person data correctly, that we link to the correct persons and we export data out to other systems so they know exactly which researcher we are talking about. So matching data coming from various sources can be enormously tricky. Researchers have similar names and all of that. So we need to make sure that we link to the correct person in Pure. And for that, we really want to use ORCID IDs, and we want to make sure that the ORCID IDs that we use are correct. The same happens when we send out data via OAI-PMH. We want to make sure that other systems receive this person and can link the correct persons. So therefore, we wanted to make sure that we sent the correct ORCID IDs. So this is why we went through that process. Pure and ORCID goes together for many, many years. We have been working together for, well, actually since 2016. That was when we in Pure built the first connection to ORCID, allowing for exporting of data from Pure to ORCID. And since then, we have been updating multiple times, correcting, adding, making it used for many other things, also using ORCID as an import source, so researcher could add their data to ORCID and pull it into Pure afterwards. And finally, I think it was in the end of 2024, we were certified as an ORCID provider. And why is that? So what we did was we had a look at what does it actually mean to be certified. And here are a list of the requirements. I won't go through them because we need to give Paul a little bit of time. But when we looked at that, we were actually not that far from. We all could actually say, yeah, we are doing this already. So there was only minor tweaks that we need to add into Pure in order to get this certification. So what we did was we had a talk with ORCID Ship, I think it was. We started out with demoing what are we doing in Pure today, how are we handling ORCID IDs. We had some discussions on where could we optimize, how could we make sure that we did it even better. We implemented some changes, so you would have seen throughout 2024 a few ORCID changes came in here and there. Most of our changes was actually UI. It was helping researcher understanding what was happening. And then we did a little bit of adjustments on which ORCID to use, and I'll come back to that. We demoed it, and then we were all happy. And we got certified. So this is in Pure. I just want to mention that in Pure, you have two ways of connecting to ORCID. There is the option of using just the public API in Pure. You can set that up. What that allows you to is importing from ORCID only. So you can import record, you can store your ORCID in Pure, but you cannot authorize it in Pure. Or you cannot use it for exporting. If you want to export to ORCID, it's important that you as an institution have a member API key. That will allow you not only to export, but also import. So you can do both on that. Yeah. Just a little bit of a screenshot of how that happens. So this here is a person, is a picture of the personal overview page in Pure, where you can go in and you can create or you can connect your ORCID, your Pure profile with your ORCID profile. And it has to be the researcher himself that does this. You cannot do it for them, so they will have to log in. And it is sort of a guarantee, at least hope, that the researcher does actually authenticate his correct ORCID ID. What will happen is we will have this little text telling him what's going to happen. I won't read through that, also for giving Paul a little bit of time, but we are sort of explaining to the researcher what will happen when you do this, what are we actually sending, what are you saying yes to. Then you're taken to ORCID, and I'm sorry I don't have a screenshot of that, where you just do the final connection. So you're simply taken to the ORCID site to do the last part of the authentication. So one of the things we changed within 2024 is that we are actually using less ORCID than we did before. And that sounds a little bit weird. But what we did before was that we were just using whatever ORCID ID there were in Pure, authenticated or not authenticated. We have moved a little bit away from that. So now when we import from sources, we are only linking or matching on authenticated ORCID IDs. So where we know that this ORCID ID is correct because the researcher have told us so. Also, when we are sending data out using OAI-PMH, for instance, we are only sending authenticated ORCID IDs, just to make sure we don't pollute the ecosystem somewhere out in the world. You can still have your ORCID ID in Pure. Also, if it's not authenticated, we will still show that on Portal. It's one of the final things that we need to do. We need to, on Portal, make a little color correction on whether or not it's authenticated or not. So when people go to the portal, they will actually be able to see whether or not it's authenticated. Yeah, and that's a few things. And then one important thing. Researcher can in Pure go in and set up an automated search for ORCID and getting records in. But right now, with the changes in 2024, we only allowed authenticated ORCID IDs to be set up as an automated search criteria. So they need to be authenticated to do so. There is also a little helping text on the person record for the researcher so he can see what's required. Yeah, a few things. We are gonna work a little bit. So since 2024, we have done a few things on ORCID also. So ORCID introduced a new set of publication types. mostly within arts and humanities, I think was coming in. We have updated both our import and export so we can link to those new types they have. They also deprecated a few types, so we have cleaned up that mess. So we are not sending data to types that doesn't exist anymore. So that happened last year. We also tweaked a little bit of help text here and there. We are going to do more in the future. We have recently, actually, after I passed in these slides, updated the way we handle former employees. So former employees, we will no longer send, we will put them on pause when a researcher in your Pure becomes former. We will simply put the synchronization on pause. Should they return, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to re-authenticate or anything like that. It will simply work again. So we are not sending, what we are doing is we are sending the final affiliation data to ORCID, telling them that they are former employees, and then we'll stop. No more. And then we need to do a few updates on OAI-PMH, but I think we're also more or less through that. So things are still happening. I think more things will happen in the future. But with these words, I'll hand it over to Paul, and he can talk a little bit on how they use ORCIDs in Aalborg.
Thank you. And I just saw that we've been working with ORCID a little bit longer than Elsevier, from 2013-14. So yeah, just a little bragging there. Why did Aalborg University pursue ORCID integration, and how to communicate ORCID to researchers, and then benefits of the integration that has brought to both the institution and to the researchers? Those are the three questions I'll try to talk a bit about. Why did we start working with ORCID? In the beginning, it was about bibliometrics and scholarly communication. We all know identifying people, researchers in bibliometrics can sometimes be hard, and if you only have the name, or yeah, we all know, I think. And also in scholarly communication, if you want to find reviewers for a research project, if you find a person with the same name, but it's not the right capacity, the right expert, then maybe you don't get the right review for your research. So it's in many aspects, it's very important to have the right identification of researchers, of course. In later years, open science has come to the agenda, and I think also in open science, ORCID has a role to play. Quality and integrity, again, to identify the right people, and well, if you publish maybe in less known journals, could be okay journals, open access journals, but where they don't have very good security systems around identifying the right authors, then integrity is also an issue, of course. How do we communicate it? Well, tell this story about bibliometrics and scholarly communication. We say it's easy to work with ORCID. It takes 3 minutes to create an ORCID and to use it in Pure. And then we say you should remember to use it in all the systems you use. That's on the long run an important thing to bear in mind. Also, in the beginning, this is quite an old slide. I think maybe nearly 8 or 10 years old. But that's how we talk about scholarly communication and ORCID. We say that in the middle we have ORCID to identify researchers, and then ORCID are used in some of the systems, both on the left and the right side. The more housekeeping systems to the left, and the social coffee systems to the right, but in all the systems, of course, you want to know who are talking to and who are in the systems. And what we recommend at our university is that you, of course, you have all your content in Pure, and you set up the export from ORCID to Pure. No, from Pure to ORCID. Well, 2 systems to profile you are better than one. So, of course, you should do that. And then you should know that in Scopus Web of Science and even in Google Scholar, ORCID is used. In Scopus and Web of Science, you can tell the systems who you are ORCID-wise. In Google Scholar, I don't know how, but somehow in the algorithms, they also use Google ORCID. And yeah. It's easy. I think Malene showed how to do it in Pure. And then remember to use it in all the systems in Pure, of course, and also when you publish and when you apply for funding and everywhere where you can use your ORCID, they should do it. And then the way we work to keep up to see how many of our researchers use the ORCID, we go to Pure and we say we have this filter. These researchers they don't have an ORCID, and we find their email addresses in the Pure system, and then we send them an email once a year. Some of them we send every year, and some they get out of the list. And what are the benefits? More visibility, both to the researchers, but also to the institution as such. And I think also some awareness that, well, you can't just rely on your name when you're out in the bibliometric systems and everywhere online. Of course, you need IDs to identify across systems. And for us at the university, it was also the start of thinking more broadly on how researchers they move around in online systems. Well, 10 years ago, so a lot of happened after that, but that was a start for us to talk more broadly on scholarly communication online.